What's up everyone, Steven here from techmaker.tv. This is part 3 of building a decentralized chat with Node.js and Aleph.im. In the first 2 episodes, we essentially just set up registration and login along with all the other sort of base boilerplate parts of the application. Just setting up Node and Express and Mongo and all that stuff. So we haven't really done anything all that interesting yet, but we can register and log into the app and all that stuff. So if you followed along with those, you should be basically the same place I am. In this episode, what we're going to do is set up Aleph, play around with it just a little bit, just as a refresher. We did do a little bit in a previous episode on kind of kicking the tires with how all of that works. But I'm going to show you where you can look around for more info on that. And then we're also going to go ahead and set it up so that when you register, we go ahead and create an Ethereum account for you so that we can sign messages and post things to the network. So that's sort of, should be kind of a quick episode, but that should set us up to, in the next episode, start actually sending messages and so on and so forth. So let's go ahead and knock this out. So before we jump in, the website that you want to look at for more info is aleph.im. And I'm going to go ahead and go over to the developers tab over here, and there's some documentation, which honestly the documentation is a little bit light right now. So that's kind of why I'm doing this more exploratory series with some of this, just to kind of get my head around some of it. What I kind of looked at to get started is the simplest possible DApp, which stands for Decentralized Application. There's a whole episode or 2 exploring that a little bit. If we jump into the GitHub, we're going to really look at some of the code from in here. And again, I'm going to skip through a bunch because I've already made an episode looking at this. What we really want to do is basically pull Aleph.js out of the library here. So they're essentially destructuring this, I think is how you call that. Again, I'm a Ruby developer by background primarily, so if I say anything that sounds funny to you and you're a JavaScript developer, it's because I'm kind of just getting up to speed with some of this. So they're destructuring, and then down here we have this ETH register. So this is what we're going to be really interested in, which is, in our case, we'll probably have like aleph.ethereum.new account just based on how I'm thinking to do it right now. But what I want to do first is kind of, and again, go check out the previous episodes if you want to see more of like how this little simple DApp works, because I have some content on that. I'll put a playlist together where those will be up front before we actually get into all of this. But in any case, I want to go ahead and kind of start playing around with this, make sure we have it all working the way that we think, and then continue setting it up in our app. Cool. So if we jump back over to our code and we have our terminal down here in VS Code, obviously if you have a separate terminal, that works just as well. So I'm going to go ahead and clear this up. And for now, I'm going to actually drag this up a bit more, and we're going to install Aleph. So we'll say npm install aleph-js. And this should just take a second here, but I'm going to go ahead and pause the video. All right, so that took slightly longer than I expected. As you can see here, we have Aleph.js 0.4.3. If we check our package.json here, let me drag this down. We should have Aleph.js or Aleph-js, sorry, as a dependency. I was Googling around, and I think there's actually another Aleph.js for some other purpose. So the one we want is Aleph-js. So once we have that, I'm going to actually, instead of just jumping into writing code, what I'm going to do is fire up a Node terminal here. So I'm going to say, or a Node REPL. So I'm going to say node -- experimental -REPL -await, which lets us use await in here. So then what we'll do is say like const aleph equals require aleph-js, and you can see that's auto completing, which is cool there. And then if we say aleph after that finishes, we'll see a bunch of code. If we scroll back up through here, you can see you've got Substrate, which I think has to do with Polkadot. You have Solana, which is its own blockchain, I believe. You have nulls related stuff here, which is a different blockchain. Some stuff for IPFS, which is sort of a global file system. You have Ethereum, so on and so forth. So there's a lot of stuff going on here, and I don't want to get into all of it right now. Basically, what we want to be able to do is just say something like this: var account equals aleph.ethereum.new account, and then we'll actually want to await that. Wait, and now we should be able to say account, and you'll see in here we have a private key and public key and some mnemonics and the address and all this stuff, right? So we're basically going to want to save a significant amount of this stuff into our user account. And this is where I need to tell you and give you a big red flag that you probably wouldn't want to do this in the way that we're doing it in a production application. And in fact, we may change it up down the line a little bit. I'm kind of thinking on some different things we could do. But in the very short term, what we're going to do is actually just going to stick some of these things inside of our Mongo database, and then use those keys to sign messages so that we can post to the network. So a user is going to register with a essentially just username and password, and then they're going to get a private key, public key, and all this stuff sort of automatically. So I think that this is going to be kind of cool, but in this episode should be kind of quick because it should just be kind of sticking these things in there once we actually finish registering. But anyway, let's see what we can get into here. So I want to emphasize the fact that, my episodes and the things I'm doing here, I'm kind of intentionally a little bit different than just a tutorial. So I really want to kind of just work through things with you. So I haven't even looked through what we're about to talk about, but we need to, or at least not since I made the previous episode and I don't remember exactly what we did. But what we need to do, we need to look at how in their example they're actually posting to the network, like what's required. And then we're going to go ahead and put that into our app. So basically, if you look at whenever they create an Ethereum account, they're saying await this add account. Actually, that's the login. So what we care about is the register here. So the account object that's returned from Aleph is going to be different than the data that we store in the database. So what we're going to have to do is actually look at what's required to sort of sign in, so to speak, to Aleph in order to post a message or to essentially regenerate an account object. And the way that we're going to do that is by pulling the mnemonics or mnemonics. I don't know if it's mnemonics or mnemonics. This is a very weird spelling for me personally, but in any case, whichever mnemonics it is, what we're going to do is basically save those things in the database, and we're going to save everything else because why not for now. But we're going to use the mnemonics, whichever, to initialize the account using Aleph. Now, there's an add account method somewhere. So this add account is not in Aleph. It's actually written down here. And because we're on Ethereum, we're going to use ethereum.import account and then use this little object here. So if we go back over to the code and we look down in the terminal here, so we've got this mnemonics. I really need to know how to pronounce that. In any case, so I'm just going to say, I don't need all caps. I have my caps lock on, I guess. Var MENEM equals, and I'm just going to paste that there. And then what was the code back over here? It was ethereum.import account. So we're going to say var account. I've already got an account, right? So that's the account. What we want to be able to do is reinitialize that object from just the mnemonics. Sorry, it's got to be annoying. So I'm going to say account equals await, and then we're going to say aleph.ethereum.import account. And then what I want to basically say is this thing, and then I'm going to say MNN, and that's just because I set that to a variable above, and I did not spell that right, which is totally not surprising. So MNEM. Okay, and you can see here now that's basically reinitializing our account. So really the only thing we technically would have to save are these things. But now we know how to reinitialize an account. So we can do basically what we want. So what I'm going to do is come back over to my index here. And what we need to do is update our user schema here. So I'm going to actually just come over here and copy private key, public key. I'm going to copy all of this stuff here. And we're going to assume in our case that we're Ethereum until we give a different functionality. I'm a strong believer in Yagni. You aren't going to need it, or you ain't going to need it. So let's not add the type until we absolutely have to have it. But these other things are sort of kind of basic crypto stuff. So let's paste these things here. And then instead of actually having the address, we're going to say string for each one. And it goes without saying, but if you ever see an address or a private key on my screen, you should never use that thing, because that means everybody else who's watched this video has seen it and they can steal all of your money. So let's go ahead and just make that like that. So now our schema is up to date. And then what we can basically do is, well, first of all, we need to import, getting ahead of myself here, import Aleph from aleph.js. And in classic TechMaker style, let's console.log Aleph just to make sure that we're not going crazy here. So I'm going to hit Control D and get out of this session. I'm going to clear this, and I'm going to say npm start. And I just want to see if it actually manages to print out my Aleph. And it's saying Aleph is undefined, maybe. Let me go ahead and make sure I'm looking at the right thing here. This is why I always do sanity checks, because it's totally possible that I'm reading something wrong or doing something wrong. So let's just see here. So Aleph is undefined. So we need to figure out what's going on with that. Let's try to use the syntax we used before, where we say const Aleph equals, and then we'll require this. I don't know why that would make a difference. It probably doesn't, but I'm going to save it anyway and see what happens here. Okay, so again, not full-on JavaScript developer as of yet, so that works. So we should just go with that, I guess. So we have const Aleph equals Aleph, and I don't need to console.log now. It crashed for some reason. So I'm getting an error saying that the address is in use, and I don't know what that's about. Let me try to change this to like 4567. See what happens here. Okay, so now I'm not getting the error, and it's probably going to tell me that the server is running on 4567. Yeah, right here. So if we go to, let me see if I save it again, what happens. Okay, so I don't know what's going on with that. I don't have any other servers running that I'm aware of. So go to 4567 here. It's asking me to log in. Okay, so it seems like we have Aleph installed and working now. I'm going to get rid of this console.log here. If it crashes again, I don't know what to say about that. I don't know why that's happening. So we'll just leave it on 4567 for now. Maybe I have something else going on that I'm just not aware of. But in any case, what we want to do is once we register right here, instead of passport authenticating straight away, what I want to basically do is say something like const account. Let's say, just to make it more clear, and I'm always a big fan of making things as clear as possible, Ethereum account equals, and again, that's going to be aleph.ethereum.new account, like this. And we're going to want to await that and see if that works here. So before we do anything, let's just console.log the ETH account, and let's just see what that gets us. App crashed. What the heck? So it's going to tell us we can't use await. Okay, so I don't know what that's about. So we could, I guess, do like a promise. So we could do something like dot new account dot then ETH account, and then we can console dot log the ETH account here. I'm going to get rid of that. I need to figure out some more stuff about how I can use some of these things because it's just a little bit foreign to me still. So let me save that and see. Okay, so it didn't explode this time. So let's see if we get a new account. I think that's how I should do this with the then thing, and then let's keep going. So let's go over here. We can go to /register, and this time let's use like Christine, and then our password here, and then register. And it says we're logged in, so it didn't blow up. And back over in our terminal, you can see we're console logging out the account. So let's try to save this thing and see what happens. So we don't need to log it out. The way that we need to save this is basically to say something like, let me scroll up here. So we're going to want to say, what variables do we have? So we have user. So the object, the Mongo object that we have right now, the document more specifically, is called user. So what we can say is user.private key equals ETH account.private key. And then we're going to do the same thing for several other things here. So we're going to have public key. And then we'll have, what is it? MEN. Okay, so they spell it for me and I can just autocomplete, which is great because I have a terrible time with that word. And then address, and then address. So once we have that, I think we just need to call like user.save, potentially. Let's try it. Let's see what that does for us. Okay, so nothing crashed. Let me actually restart this thing. What just happened? There we go. Maybe. Restarting the server down here so that it logs me out and I can come back in here and log in again, or create a new account rather. So we'll do like Samantha password, and this may break. I don't know. Let's see. Says I'm logged in. Okay, so let's go back and look at the terminal real quick. We really don't have any output here. So let's go over to our, actually, let me just check one thing. I'm sorry I'm bouncing around so much, but I want to look at our user code here. So, so what we're doing in our users/username, which again, this is not going to last. This would be, especially the way we have this set up right now, this would be a giant security problem. I mean, just beyond a problem, something terrible. But what we can do is go to like /user/Samantha, and in theory, if everything we did just worked, we should see all of those keys that we just set up. So we should be able to go to /users/Samantha. And you can see here that we've got username is Samantha. There's an ID, which is automatically generated by Mongo. We've got an address. We've got the mnemonics, however you want to say that. We've got a private key and a public key. So basically, we're set up. Now we are saving. It's really only a couple lines of code that we added, but we added this Aleph library, which is a recap. We updated our, sorry, let me actually move this down a little bit so I can see more. I'm also using a mouse, which I'm not typically doing. I've got kind of a setup for recording, and it's a little bit different than my work environment. So if I'm scrolling like a crazy person, it's because I usually don't have a mouse. So we added some stuff to our schema here, which Mongo just picks up nicely, so we don't have to really do anything. We just have to add and tell it what stuff is. And then down here, we're just basically saying set each attribute and then save the user. And then once we do all of that, we passport authenticate. So yeah, it's Pretty cool. So now that we have that, what we should be able to do, and we'll do this in the next episode, is set up some kind of form where we can post a message to the Aleph network using our backend here. So as a parting note, I just want to say one more time, this is very exploratory, and in particular, the security model here is something we would have to think about a lot harder and probably do some things differently if we're making a production app. And as we get later on in the series, we may do that. I've got some ideas for it, but I'm really just kind of feeling this out and exploring. This is a little bit outside my normal comfort zone. So if you're an expert in all of this, bear with me. But in any case, this is super interesting to me. I hope you're enjoying it. If you made it this far in the episode, I appreciate you hanging with me. And this should be a cool series. So hopefully you learn a lot. Hopefully I learn a lot. And hopefully it's all a good time. So thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you in the next episode.